Hello and welcome to Megs & Co. in the studio. My name is Meg and I am the owner and yarn dyer behind Megs & Co. And I'm so glad that you are here. In today's episode, this is going to be part 3 of our series on dyeing mini skeins in mason jars. So if you have not watched part 1 or part 2, I invite you to go check out those videos right now. Part 1 is an in-depth tutorial on dyeing a complete tonal set of mini skeins, and part 2 is using the rest of that dye to then create a gradient set of variegated yarns that will pair perfectly with our tonal collection. Today we are going to be sitting down and briefly looking at our results and chatting about the yarn. So grab a seat and let's chat. So we'll start with how our tonal collection came out. These are all of the mini skeins from part 1. So we dyed all of these mini skeins using mason jars. So again, I did a very in-depth tutorial from start to finish, so I'll just go over very quickly roughly what we did. We used 16 different pickle jars, mason jars, whatever kind of heat-proof jar that you have is fine to use. We put one mini skein in each one of those jars with a little bit of citric acid and then our dye. For the yarn, we used Clover DK. It is a non-superwash yarn and it was from Nomad Yarns. It is a wonderful yarn. It is super soft. It took the dye exceptionally well. It's absolutely gorgeous. And so to create this, it may look like a ton of work, but the nice part about this method is that we were able to dye 16 different colors, but we really only needed one tray. So one pan or one hotel tray of to put all of our mason jars in, and we only needed 8 different different dyes to dye this yarn. So what we did is we did a concentrated version and a light version of every single one of these dyes. So this was Plum Dandy. So we took a 1% solution and a 0.1% solution of every single dye that we mixed up and dyed a mini skein of each so that we got a high and a low representation. So this is Plum Dandy. Then we have Salmon. All of these dyes were from Dharma Trading. And all of these dyes, with the exception of Salmon, are Dharma Trading brand. Salmon is Jacquard brand, but you can still get it from Dharma Trading. This was Tobacco. And I love how differently the 1% and the 0.1% solution comes out in this. Like, this is almost like a brownish color. And yet this is like a pale, playful, like duckling yellow. Next, we added in a neutral. This was Pecan. Really pretty. Then we have Forest Green. Teal. Blue Steel. Or is this Steel Blue? I can never remember. And Aubergine. It's really pretty. This is another one where I feel like the 1% and the 0.1 just look so different, but they're both very lovely. So I wanted to show you how you can create a wide variety of colors um, by just using different concentrations of dyes. So if you didn't have 8 dyes, you could have just used different concentrations of the dyes that you have. So you could have expanded to create a bigger gradient of every one of these colors that you wanted. But I chose colors specifically to try to capture a full spectrum of color. And I'm really pleased with how these colors came out. I would say, probably like the only one that I feel like just kind of stands out a little bit to me is perhaps like the salmon. But then again, when I look at it, like when I pull it out and pair it, with some of the other colors, it really adds such a beautiful contrast that, like, yes, it is very bold, but like I just love the way that it plays with all the other colors. So perhaps if salmon is just a little too bright for you, you can play with just adding a little less. Another thing that you can do is add even a little bit of like the pecan to it, which will kind of help tone it down just a little bit. But other than that, that's probably the only one that really like jumps out as being just a little just different than the rest. I am so happy with how these all turned out and how these all fit together. It's a beautiful rainbow of color, and there's so many different color combinations. You can use all of the light colors together. Like this pastel collection. It's just beautiful. And then you have, oh my gosh, this is just stunning. Then you just have all your bolder colors. They're beautiful. But of course, you don't have to use them in rainbow order, and that's where the fun comes in, is then pulling out, colors in combination to start putting together, different kits and collections. Oh my goodness, like look at that. So you can just have endless fun putting together different kits and color combinations using these colors. And the possibilities really are just endless. Absolutely gorgeous. So very happy with that. So in part 2, so we had quite a bit of leftover dye and don't want to be wasteful. So we took our remaining skeins that were in the package. So each package from Nomad comes with 25 mini skeins. So we used 16 for our tonal series. So we had 9 left over, and we still had quite a bit of dye left over. So if you had followed exactly how I had mixed it up, I had mixed up 0.5 grams of every single color. And so how much did I use? If I did I do 0.5 grams? I'm not remembering. I think I did. Did I do 0.5 or 1 gram? Sometimes I can't remember if I mix up 1 gram or if I did 0.5. I might have done 1 gram. So if I did 0.5 grams for a 1% solution, we would have used 20 mils to create our 1% color. So any of the darker, bolder colors, these are all 1%. So 20 mils on 20 grams. These are all 20-gram mini skeins. That gives us 1% depth of shade per weight of wool. Look at that color combination. Oh my goodness. Like I could just, this is what I do. Just so good. So that gives you your 1% per depth of shade. To get 0.1%, you just have to move the decimal 1 decimal place. So you add 2 mils to get your 0.1, and that gave us these wonderful softer muted pastel colors. So yeah, so that makes sense that I would have mixed up half a gram of dye. So we'll say I used 25 milliliters of dye solution. So I had about 25 milliliters of dye solution of every single color remaining, and did not want to waste that. So we set up one pan, and I used the hotel catering pans, and I arranged the yarn such that the skeins were situated so that they snaked in and out of each other. So think of it like C's that interlocked with each other, and they went across the pan. And by doing that, we could add colors across the pan, and the colors would kind of slowly bleed from one skein to the next, creating a gradient of color. So we had the yarn essentially arranged in the pan. So this one was probably like that. Yeah, so we had the skeins arranged in the pan. Instead of going straight up and down horizontal across the length of the pan, they were more in this fashion. And this way, as we're adding the color, you get that gradient effect in that the color is getting some of this skein, maybe a little of this skein. So the colors are slowly shifting through the pan, through the skeins in a very gradual way that creates a stunning gradient of color. And I think that you can really see that in how these turned out. So this would have been one end of the pan, this was the other end of the pan, and we got a really beautiful transition of color. So these are definitely all one-of-a-kind skeins because we just took the leftover dye, poured it kind of randomly. I kept to rainbow order, and that was just following kind of color theory of the rainbow works and looks beautiful. Nature knows what it's doing. So to avoid getting kind of muddy and muddled colors, we poured colors that naturally in nature exist next to each other in the rainbow. We poured those colors next to each other, and that way you get a very beautiful gradual transition of color that isn't going to create those kind of muddy and undesirable colors. So I'm so happy with how this came out. You could absolutely just use this in a project all by itself. I feel like this would be beautiful. I could also see this being really gorgeous if you were to do like color work. So especially because this is non-superwash yarn. Non-superwash yarn thrives in color work projects. So if you had single color work, you could rotate these skeins through your color work, kind of like how a gradient cake was if you've ever used spin cycle yarn, where that yarn is on its own gradually changing color and you get that color changing effect. Well, you could just do that by changing the colors every few rows so that the yoke of your sweater has this gradient in the color work. It would be beautiful. Or you can mix and match. So this gradient, because we've used all the same colors, this gradient matches our tonal collection perfectly. So you could also just start mingling in our colors. Look at that. So that is absolutely stunning. And I think, again, this salmon color, I think when it's especially with the variegated skeins that are all generally a little muted, I think that's where it just, I don't know, it's just a little harsh. So when I pull that out, it just really looks perfect. So this is probably the only one that I'm just a little like, I don't necessarily love it, but I love how it goes with so many of the other colors. So you'll have to let me know, do you love or hate how this one came out? I am absolutely obsessed with how this collection came out. This is one that I would absolutely dye again for myself, for friends. If I were to dye this again for myself, for friends, again, this salmon color, I would either only do this at a 0.5%. So instead of adding 20 mils, I think I would only add 10 mils. And I think I would probably also mix it together with a little bit of the pecan just to kind of mellow it down, brown it out a little bit. Or I would try a different orange altogether. So I wanted to create a full spectrum of color. I didn't necessarily need a rainbow, but I do like to do full spectrum of colors. For this, the idea was to do like an advent. So, we've got 25 mini skeins here. So when you're doing a collection like this, it's nice to have a full spectrum of color so that when you're putting together your projects, you have lots of options to pull and choose from. So in that sense, because we do have a lot of pinks and purples, probably choosing just a different orange altogether is probably what I would do if I were to do this again. So yeah, I'm so pleased. I'm so happy with how it came out. And I hope that you're happy with how it came out too. I would love to know if this is a project that you plan to try for yourself. If you have done this, let me know how it went for you in the comments. I would love for you to share your results. You can share them either on Instagram. You can follow me and find me on Instagram at megsandco_yarn. So if you want to try dyeing this, please tag me in your results. I would love to see it. And also tag Nomad Yarns because they want to see the results as well. And if you ever have any questions or just want to chat about yarn dyeing, yarn, any of the things, head on over to my Discord server. We have a great community over there, and we love chatting about all things yarn. So that's really it. It's short, but yeah, this so pretty. And I love how there's so many like little mini collections. Like you've got like your little rose collection. I've been eyeing like this kind of neutrally green collection, this blue collection. Like it's all so good. Now I forgot what I was saying. Okay, we're wrapping this up. So yes, if there's any other tutorials that you want to see. Ask me questions in the comments as well. I'm always looking for new ideas. What do you want to see? What do you want to learn about? I would love to share with you. So until next time, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.